Okay, moving on to the next question. What does Gradle do? Okay, okay. Okay, I guess most of you have answered now. Let's just check which is the right answer. So it helps in automated building and testing of apps, as we discussed. XML is used to create UI, and your compiler is what instantiates those views from XML. And again, your Android manifest is what defines app permissions and activities. All right, so good. Most of you have got the answers right, which is really nice. And you know, so okay, let's move on. Next, we've got the code review. Let me just change my screen presentation. Give me 1 second. Okay. So coming to the first app, which is okay. Wait. Yep. So coming to the, is my internet fine? Am I audible?
Yeah,
You
Rishi, you
okay?
are audible.
Good. Um, Yeah, so this is Tip Time, which is an app you'll be building in your second unit, but it'll contain your basic concepts as well. So, I mean, if you built your first app, then you shouldn't be having much of difficulty with this as well. So, let's just review the project files that we discussed earlier, and then we'll move on to the code part. So when you come into your project, this is Android Studio, right? I've just kept this open so that we can just directly move into this. So it yeah, in your main project file, in your root directory, there's build.gradle, which we saw that it defines dependencies, whichever repositories you've got to use, and then your Kotlin versions, and then a little more information about your entire project. Then we've got gradle.properties, settings.gradle. All these things are like exactly how we discussed it, but you won't be using it much. You'll mainly be working with your module level build.gradle, and sometimes maybe when your project level build.gradle. So moving on, we have your module level build.gradle. This one is a bit longer, and it defines your compile SDK. SDK is basically your Android version, right? So if you say SDK compile SDK 31, you build the app for the Android version number 31. So main SDK here defines the minimum version on Android on which it can run. Then you've got your version codes, a bit more of what do you say, technicalities like your test instrumentation runner, your build types, and all the other things like your compile options. And dependencies is where you will be putting in all your, what do you say, libraries. So here we need to implement um, core KTX, app compact, material library, constraint layout. All these things we will be using in our app, so it has to be declared beforehand and saying the compiler that, hey, get this code beforehand itself, so that we can like just directly use it in our app without having to build it again. Okay. Next comes our source folder, which is what SRC stands for. And then in that we've got your main module, and then in that we've got our Android manifest. So as you can see, it says manifest. That's what is your main tag, and inside that we've got our application tag. And then as you can see, it's got certain attributes, right? It says which icon to use, what's the app name called, what's the app name, and then afterwards it says what's the theme, then which of activities it consists of, which all activities it consists of, what's the name of the activity. And basically this intent filter, you won't have to worry about much for now. You'll be learning about intents in your third module, I guess. What these 4 lines of code basically does is that it tells them that when you click on your app right from the home screen, it says launch this particular activity, which is main activity in this case. Okay, and then so coming back to the main folder, we've got our res folder as well, which consists of our drawables, layouts, then the values, which consists of our colors, strings, themes, and such. So and one more thing is that values night. This is used for suppose you've got another theme like for your dark mode or something like that, then you'll use another folder similar to values night or something like that. And then we've got our Java folder as well. Inside your Java folder, com.example.tiptime is your package name. So why do we define package name, or what is a package name, is basically because to avoid naming conflicts. So what that means in simple terms is that, let's say you've made a calculator app and so has your friend, or so has Google, and all three of you call it calculator. Now, how will you differentiate which is whose? Uh, so you do that by specifying a package name. All right. So you can say com.example.rishi.calculator, that for me and your friend's name, and then Google will say com.google.calculator or something like that. So the package names goes from very generic to specific things. So when you have first, you'll have your .com, and then your maybe your website name and such like that, things like that. And so you get it right. It's used to differentiate and between the packages. And after that, let's come to the let's review the UI first before we get into the Kotlin part of things. I guess that would be easier than like directly diving into the code part. And I think we can discuss a bit about the first 3 lines that are there here. So what it means is that XMLNS stands for XML namespace. All right. So you're basically saying that, okay, or let's backtrack a bit. We discussed that the tags are not actually defined in XML, right? So you've got to define your own tags and then make sense of that. And it's bound to happen that again we'll have naming conflicts, meaning there will be similarly or same name tags with between different packages, and you want to differentiate. So suppose I've made a tag called text view, and so has Android. So how does the compiler know which text view to instantiate from this XML file? And that is helpful. That's where XML namespace comes in, right? It basically says that for the namespace Android, get it from this website, or the website is just used as a reference. Sometimes it actually links to the website, but it basically says that, hey, use the Android version of the text view. So that's why it's specified everywhere, saying that the layout width specified in Android, then we have the layout constraint specified in app, and things like that. So the first line we've specified the XML version, then your main view group, which contains everything else, and then after that we have your other views like your text input layout or your text views, and then your radio buttons, and other stuff like even your constraint layout view group. If you haven't done your completed your unit 1 yet, it might seem like a lot of gibberish to you, or might not exactly get all the specific things, but don't worry, I'm just painting a bigger picture so that when you actually get into the code part of it, it's much easier for you to like understand what you're actually doing, because this kind of explanation, like it's very spread out through the entire course. So if you have to piece together the things and then later work it out, it's quite hard. So I thought that this session would be kind of helpful in that respect. Okay. Uh, and we discussed about how to instantiate our views as well, right? So instantiate, we discussed about how to make our UI. So there are not exactly, there are three ways to make our UI. The first one is your layout editor, which is obviously the most easiest, but is can be a bit hard to manipulate at times. All right, so it's your just drag and drop. You can just put your button here, and then it puts in a button or there, and then it you can when you select your views, you can add your attributes, and then so when you're starting out, this is very helpful because you won't have to fiddle with much of the XML code. You can just directly do all this and then set the positions, the attributes and such. But later on, when when your UI gets a little more complex, you'll have to work with the XML code because there's a limit to what you can do with drag and drop. All right. So that's when you come to this part and then you do this. So the second way is obviously working directly with XML. The third way is the most tedious way, which barely anybody uses, is to instantiate the views one by one. So I think instantiate may be a bit like you might not exactly understand. So let me explain it. Instantiation basically comes under an OOPS concept. Now OOPS stands for object oriented programming. Okay, so Kotlin, Java, C, if you guys already know programming, for those of you who know, you would be very familiar with these concepts. But for the others, object oriented programming basically means that your code revolves around objects that you create. So we can say that I create a box object. Okay, so how this all works out is that we have a class and then we have an object. So if you say that I want to make a Golden Gate Bridge, okay, we will need to have the architectural plan first, right? So we call that plan as the class. So it's basically like a blueprint. Okay, so if you say that you need to make a bridge, then you need these many materials, you have to assemble it in this way, and then if you put some load on it, then this is what happens. It defines nearly everything regarding your object. All right, then when you actually make the bridge, then you're making that object. So in this case, we call it instantiation. So making the object from the class. Now the object actually exists, okay, like how the bridge exists, but the blueprint just shows that how the bridge would look like. Okay, and that's what we are working with. So instantiation means you're creating something out of a blueprint. So here as well, here's the same thing. We are saying that your constraint layout, we need to create a constraint layout, right? That's what the compiler does with the XML. We say that it automatically just creates a constraint layout, and then it says puts its width as match parent and then its padding as 16. Don't worry if you don't understand these tags, you can always look them up. It'll be specified in your course as well. So your how this works is that it has to instantiate objects, right? So that you can actually interact with it. You can't interact with a plan. So when you actually make the bridge, then you can interact with the bridge. That's the same way how this works. So you'll have to instantiate all your components and views and view groups, and then only it works. So XML is very easy. Now, if you see the XML, your Android Studio actually directly shows you how it look before you compile the app. That's the best thing. The next thing is that you can see that inside this view group, we've got all these views. You can directly see only the relevant attributes and all those things, right? So when you explicitly instantiate in the code, which you can also do, but in that it becomes a bit hard to visualize it and then understand what exactly is going on. Okay, so that's why we use XML. It separates it, and it's also like makes it easier for people to work with all these things. Okay, so that's a bit about this. And then moving on, we have our main activity. So as you may all know, activity is just one screen in your app. Your app can have multiple activities. You just have to declare them beforehand in your app manifest. So coming here, first we have our package. We discussed about this. So it says that com.example.tiptime. So com.example is basically what people use when they don't make for a company, just dummy value. Then tip time is our app name. So it says that I belong to this package. Then nextly we have our import statements. So you remember that in our module level build Gradle, we said that we are using these libraries from here. So in your what do you say code, you'll have to further declare that from these libraries I want to use this specific what do you say file or this specific part of it, so that it's much easier for the compiler to work with it. Or else if it just gets the whole code and then most of it won't be used, then there's it'll like become very slow, it won't serve the purpose, right? So you just say that I just want this specific functionality and import that so that it can be used along with your code. Okay, then coming to the next part, we have our class main activity, and the colon and the app compact activity that you see here is part of inheritance. You will be learning that in your course, but I can give you a small gist of it. So inheritance is again an object-oriented programming concept. It basically means that when you already have an object, instead of like say when you have a class or object, instead of declaring everything from scratch, you can say that I'll take certain properties from the other object. Okay, so if you have to put this into real terms, it would be something like if you take a vegetable, for example, a vegetable can be considered as an object. Okay, so can a cube or anything else. Even your house is an object. So they have certain similar properties, right? Like their mass and then their density, all those other properties. So all of these can be defined in a singular place called object, and then you can just reuse the code everywhere. So it's all about reusability, right? So if you already have it, if you have already made it, then why do you have to do it again? So that's what we hope to achieve with inheritance. So it here what it says is that I'm declaring an activity which inherits properties from your app compact activity. If you see, actually inheritance corresponds to the actual word as well, where you like get stuff from your parents, like all the other things. You can look up the definition. Okay, I forgot that. But so here what happens is that it's app compact activity is defined in your Android, saying that this is how an activity is. These are all the layouts, and this is all the data it should have. This is how it should behave and respond. So we're saying that a main activity is also an activity. So it will behave in the same way as an activity. And we're defining some extra things in our main activity. So that's the same thing if you look at the other examples too. Okay, so moving to the next line, we have our private late init var binding. Okay, we'll not talk about this. This will be covered in your course unit, and it's a bit of a tough concept to like, not exactly tough, but you'll have to like learn a bit more background to learn about this. So I won't be covering this, but binding is basically okay. We'll talk about little more in the after about it a bit later, after we discuss about the other things. Okay, let's discuss the onCreate function first, then we'll move to that. So override fun onCreate. Fun is basically how you define a function, and onCreate is the function name, right? So and then after that we have our saved instance bundle, which is the argument. You don't have to worry about the argument for now. What we're basically doing with override is that we say we know that our app compact activity already has an onCreate function saying that when this activity is created, you're supposed to call this function. Okay, so what we're saying is that we know we don't want to do that. Our class does something else when this function is called. Okay, so what we're saying is that we don't want to do that. We're doing something different. But the first line, we are saying that super.onCreate. So we're saying that call the activity function as well, but we will do something after that. Main activity does something extra apart from the original activity. Okay, that is required, or else all your activities will be a blank screen, right? That's how your basic activity looks. So we are saying that we also need to have some UI elements. That is our extra in our onCreate function. Now this onCreate, where it comes from, is a bit important. Okay, because you'll have to get a bit more context for that. And so what happens is that you'll have when your app is opened, right? Each activity goes through a life cycle. All right, it's activity lifecycle. So in an activity lifecycle, first our blueprint is there, our class is there. Then we create our activity object. So when you create an activity object, first the on create function is called. That is where this comes in. Okay, or the Android or your the phone that it's running on does all this automatically. So it's pre-configured. We just need to call the activity and say do these things when it's created. Okay, so after your object is created, then after that it has to come into view or it has focus, so the user is interacting with it. So when that happens, it calls another function called on start or on resume, which you won't be using much for now. You'll use it in the later units, but just know that it's there. Okay, so the user is interacting with it. So when your app opens, first it's created and then the user interacts with it. In that process, a few methods are called, and then after that, when the user moves on, okay, when he's done with his work, then after that it moves into the background. So your object is still there. Okay, it still has all its like properties and such, but the user isn't interacting with it anymore. So when that happens, the on paused function is called. You don't have to remember all this. Lot of it will come in your course as well. In the middle, you'll study a bit about it, but mainly you just have to know a bit about on create and the background of how it all works. Okay, so if you know how it all works, it's like much easier to go on coding, and if you want to implement some functions and all, it's much easier to do so. So after, let's continue where we left off. So the user has stopped interacting and on pause is called. So the object is there, but it's there in the background. Then finally, when the user closes the app, and then it gets destroyed. Okay, so it's not there in the memory anywhere, and it's back to the class. Okay, so in that case, your on destroy function is called. So on destroy is sometimes used when you have, I think it's used here as well. Okay, it's not, but it's mainly called when before you close the app, you need to perform some last minute functions like just checking if you have already saved all those values, or like if the user was editing something, you just want to make sure that his work is saved, right? Like in a lot of software and all, it's just that feature is there. So you just want to ensure that it's there so it doesn't lose his work, and some certain last minute configurations as well. So that's where on destroy is used. Now you may now if you've already done programming before, uh, this might seem like a lot to, like it might seem a bit different if you come to Android for the first time, right? Because your regular it doesn't work this way, because see, a lot of it is you just know that this is what is there, and this is how I interact with it. Like same with the on create function and your activities and such. A lot of it is happening behind the scenes. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. It happens behind the scenes. Okay. And that is another important concept when you come to your object-oriented programming called abstraction. The same way how your ATM or your motor works. So you know that if you do this, it gives this output, but you won't exactly know how it's working. All right, so that's important because you don't want to show the user how exactly you're putting some stuff in a database, or your database, how it looks, the table and all. We just want him to know that if you do this, your activity will be saved or your data will be saved. If you do this, this happens. That's all. So the same thing is happening for us, but in a much lower level. All right, so we just know that when the function, when your activity is created, then this function is called. So we can do all our pre-work over here. Okay, so coming to the contents of our on create, uh, we have our binding and then set. Okay, now we have to discuss binding, right? Because that's the main thing that's come now. So if you do not use your binding, then let's say you don't use binding. Okay, you will call your set content view, like set content view is basically what it says that this is my UI, please create it or please instantiate it and get it from this file. So if you don't do that, you will say set content view activity main r.id activity layout.activity main. But right now we are not doing that. Okay, because we want to use binding, right? We'll have to see what binding is for that. So if you do that, if you don't use binding, then you'll have to first call set content view like this. Then if you want to interact with a button or like change properties of the specific views in those in your XML, then for each of them you will have to call something like find view by ID. Okay, so you can also do something like button is equal to find view by ID r dot id dot calculate button. Okay. So let's leave the errors for now. So this is what you would usually do. All right, you will instantiate your button, or you will just give it a reference saying that this is the view that I want to manipulate, or I have a reference of. So later you can say on this button, like how we have called here, you can say that when this button is clicked, perform calculate tip, or you want to just change the text of the button, all those things. You'll have to do this find view by ID every single time. So what binding does is that it like removes a lot of that redundant code, right? You just have to declare it once in the start, and then you say that you call this first line, which is this. Okay, we will come to that. I'll explain that also later. But first, let's see what binding does. So you'll just call this first line, and then you say binding.root. So the main view group is there, right? That is what refers to your set content binding.root. And then you say that this is our main view. Please create your UI with this. And then binding, it also has a reference to all our views and view groups inside the object itself. So instead of saying find view by ID every single time for each object that you refer, you can just call calculate button and set on and change whatever properties you wish. Okay. So that's how binding is like very helpful with all these things. It just automates a lot, just removes redundant code, like I said, and then like there are a lot other functionality that you can use with binding also. Okay. So then coming to this line, so it says activity main dot binding, activity main binding dot inflate. Okay, so activity main binding basically refers to your XML only. The only thing is that the naming changes a bit. So your the underscore will be removed and then the letters are capitalized. So activity main will become activity main binding. If you have a second screen, it will become something like second screen binding. So it just refers to that XML file. Okay, just another way of referring to it. So it says from that XML file, we need to inflate. Now, what is inflate? So we discussed about instantiation, right? From your XML, your objects have to be created. That's exactly what's inflation. So what it does is that take that XML file and then create all those views and then set it into binding. Then later we can use binding to refer to all those objects that we created. Okay, then coming to the next line, we have our set on click listener. It's pretty self-explanatory. We just say that when it's clicked, do this. So here it is calculate tip, and calculate tip is a function. All right, a function is a piece of code that you can that executes or achieves something or does something, and then you can call it from several places. So you can just say the calculate tip like multiple times. You don't have to like code it again and again. Okay. So then inside calculate tip, it gets a lot into the specifics. We won't like discuss much about this, but you see when you go through the course, right, they will give you line by line explanation for most of this. All right, and you will be coding along with them as well, right? So that will be explained in that part. I just want to like give you a top level view of stuff. Okay. So when you execute it, it looks somewhat like this. All right, is my screen? Yes, I think it should be visible. So it looks somewhat like this. And then if you go to your activity main, you can see that our constraint layout is the whole thing. You can't see the view group, but then first comes our text input field, and then our text views, like how was the service, and then our radio group options, and then basically whatever was defined in the XML comes up one to one. And then when you call your calculate tip, then afterwards it like executes calculate tip, does whatever is supposed to be done, and then after that it gives the result. Okay, so this was the first app. The second app that you'll be making in your unit 2 is the affirmations app. Now this is a bit important to discuss because when you're working with recycler views for the first time, things can get a bit hard to understand because again it's abstracted a lot. Okay, so like you know what functions are there, but it gets a bit tough to wrap your mind around it. Okay, so first we have our okay, we'll just discuss the adapter first. Okay, maybe we can take a look at the main activity. Uh, okay, this is a bit of instantiation, and then we haven't even used our, yeah, so see, here they haven't used binding, right? So if you don't use binding, then it says set content view r.layout.activity main. We are basically calling your activity main from the res folder, this one. Okay, so we are calling our activity main, and then we are saying that set content view. This is our UI. Please instantiate it, and then after that. We call our recycler view saying that find view by ID. So find view by ID is there's a view that we instantiated using our XML. Find that view using this ID that we have provided, and this ID is usually mentioned in our recycler view, say with the Android attribute Android ID. Okay. So then after that we set the adapter. Now we have to come to discuss the adapter, right? So what happens in the adapter is that it has to be declared. Let me just remove the comments. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, so in the starting, what happens is that we have our package and import declarations that's there. Then after that, we declare our class called item adapter, and then we say that when you declare or when you instantiate an item adapter class, then you're supposed to provide us two arguments called context and then data set. So arguments is just another word for saying that when you create using this class, I need two things to be created. So it's basically like giving conditions or like giving initial values. Okay, so uh, so our conditions is of type context. Okay, type is basically saying that okay, let's come to context first. So context is exactly as the word means. So it gives the adapter or the variable information about the execution environment, like things like what is the Android version or some other background variables, like, and then the threads, a lot of other information, background information it gives, so that it can like carry out its tasks appropriately, right? So then what we say here is that this is basically a declaration of your context variable. So we say that we need to make a variable of the type context. So context will have certain properties. So even this variable has all those things. Okay, that falls under instantiation, but here the type is context. So when we make our item adapter in main activity, you can see that it's passing on the context from the app, and then it's also passing on the data set. The data set we'll come to after we discuss about the item adapter. Okay. So the next line is we have the colon here again, and then for that shows inheritance, and then we inherit from this class called recycler view dot adapter. Okay, so mainly we will be using our recycler view, right? Recycler view is used to show a list of components, and mainly it's preferred over list view because recycler view, as the name says, it only declares or instantiates the views that's required. So if your screen can only fit 4 of the items, then it only declares 4 items, and then when you scroll through it, the items are reused. Okay, so the same view is shown again, but then the data inside that view is just changed. So instead of like having like 100 views or something like that, if you have just 4, then the memory usage and the processor consumption, everything is like optimized a lot. So that's why this is preferred when you usually make your views, list views, or need to show a list. Okay, so here we say from recycler view, there's this adapter class that we are inheriting from. Now this is a bit more advanced concept. Okay, they don't exactly explain this in the course, but what is mentioned between the triangle brackets, okay, that is called that is forgetting the name for that, but we pass in the item view item adapter dot item holder. Okay, now if you come down, there's this, we have declared another class inside our class called item view holder. Okay, so this view holder, what it basically does is that it inherits from the view holder class. Okay, bear with me a little bit, I'll just explain this part again, explain this part after we discuss a bit about view holder. Okay, so view holder is basically saying that each single element that we have in the recycler view, I am inheriting from this class, and it's there in item view holder. Okay, and view is there here. It's also given as the argument for the view holder. Okay, so when we get the view, then we can say that inside the view, whatever is there, we are getting a reference to that using find view by ID, and then we are storing it in our text view and our image view. Okay, so then what we're saying to the adapter is that in the triangle brackets, it says item view holder. Okay, Now this is kind of like an argument, but not exactly an argument. It specifies the type. Okay, so if you're saying you're an adapter, but for what type, you can have different views, right? Like each list view that you have seen in different apps, all of them have different elements. Now, so we have to specify exactly what the element is going to look like or what is going to be. So that's what we do here. We're saying that this is our view holder. Okay, we give to the adapter saying that each element is going to be like this. Okay, that's what we do. And then again we have our override function. So on create view holder, on bind view holder, and get item count. Get item count is pretty right. You know what it does? It just gives the size of the view, number of elements. And then so we'll discuss about the on create and on bind view holder. All right. So on create view holder is basically called when you initialize those starting for views that are there in the screen, right? When they are created from the XML, then you call on create view holder. Okay. So what this does is that again it calls our layout inflator, which we discussed. Okay, it says layout inflator using the parent context. So inflate this list item. So list item is just another small XML that we defined. Okay, it just says that inside the material card view, that's our element. Okay, we have just one image view and one text view. Okay. So we say that create a view from this, and then this is the parent. We provide some arguments to this inflate as well. We say that inflated from this XML, and this is the parent, and then attached to root. So parent and attached to root work hand in hand, right? We see sometimes we say that match parent when we put in the, what do you say, XML, we some properties we say that this view that is there, put the width the same as the parent. Okay, you just want to fill the whole thing. So that's why a parent comes in. Okay, so you just see from the parent what is the width, and then accordingly you can set in the exact pixels, the width and height in pixels. Okay, and then attached to root. So you have to mention false when you're creating your view inside on create view holder. If you don't, it will give you an error, but that basically means that when attached to root, if you put it as true, it will attach it to the parent. So it will say that this element I put it in the parent here. But if you don't put true, if you put false, then it says that we just instantiated it. It's not put in any view group as such. It's just there. So why this is important is because the recycler view handles the attaching of your view to the parent, or when it has to be attached and when it has to be detached. Everything is taken care of you in the background. Okay, so it creates the view using this, and then it returns an item view holder. So it says is that what it basically says is that we return a view holder of our item view holder class. Okay, and we give the view as the argument here. Okay, so the next thing is that our on bind view holder. So on bind view holder is when the view scrolls out of our screen, then it has to come back, right? That time what do you say? What data should I put in that view? So that is what is handled by your on bind view holder. Okay, so again, see if you see it, the word itself says, so when it's again binded back to the screen, then that time how should I populate it? So it's from here we get our uh, data from the data set, our, what do you say, the text and image from the data set, and then from that we say that we have a we say that from the text view we set the text as the, what do you say, whatever text is given in item, and then we set the image as whatever image is given in the item. Okay, if you don't have to exactly worry about this context dot resources or get string. It'll be explained in your course, but a little more will be like specifics will be told. But then what it basically means is that we have defined this in our resources file. Just get it from there. Okay, so that's what happens in our on bind view holder. When you bind it, it gives you a reference to that view, and then it gives you a position at which it's at. So you can say that if it's at this position, then put this data in it. If it's in the top position, then put this data in it. So that's what happens. Okay, so if you didn't do this, then you'll have to manage everything, which is big headache. And even though it seems slightly complicated at the start, it simplifies things a lot once you get used to it. Okay. So I actually have a bit of code that to demonstrate about this item adapter or view holder. Okay, so why we basically pass item view holder instead of directly passing a view is because it gets easier to reference the internal views that are there. Okay, so if you just basically create an object of your view group, all right, and it has several what do you say, views inside it. But what happens is that once you declare that view or instantiate that view group, you don't get references to that views inside. So what we do in our classes, we just basically say that as soon as the view is instantiated, we get our hooks to that view, so we can just refer to it. So saying that we store it somewhere, saying that it's there, and we have a reference to it. If you want to like change properties or do something with that, then you can use this reference that we have already saved. Okay, so if you don't want to use your class or item view holder, it will look a bit somewhat like, one second, let me just find the code for that. And then okay, cool. Now see, let me just, yeah, so we're just optimizing some stuff. So here we see that recycler view dot view holder. Okay, so the class that we initially imported from the view and sorry, the class that we initially inherited from our item. One sec. Just be there. I'll just do that. And so if you can see here, we said that our item view holder class inherits from our view holder. But here what we're saying is that each item is a view holder itself. Okay, so when we bind it, we can just say that holder dot item view dot find. So we okay. So if you see here, we say that this reference is there, right? We say in our view contains a item text view called item title, and we store that in our text view. So what happens in on bind is that we don't have that reference because we didn't even declare our class in the first place. So we have to do find view by ID every time. So that's why it's helpful if you store it beforehand using your on create, so that it also like maybe smoothen things up a bit and saves a bit of memory as well. Okay, and I mean this looks fairly unreadable, and if you just split that code using this, it's much easier to do as well. And when your list views get, when your, what do you say, items in the list view get more bigger or complicated, then this method is again very useful. Okay, I guess that should give you a bit of uh, like stuff about the item adapter. Okay, you should have understood. I mean, if you aren't that clear about it, no worries. You can ping me after the session. I'll be more than happy to address your doubts. Or you can also look up videos on the internet. Now, internet is your best friend when you're coding. Okay, if you already have some experience, then you'd be knowing this. But literally every problem that you have, it has already been encountered by people before. All you need to do is search. Okay, so that's there. And then yeah, so coming to the data set, this isn't that complicated when compared to our item adapter, but then what it basically does is that it initializes data, as you can see. So your data set is data source dot load affirmation. So what we're doing here is that we are taking our data source. If you see data source, then it's a class that has just one function. Okay, it returns a list of affirmations. Okay, now if you see what is an affirmation, then affirmation just consists of two values, another data class. Data class is basically saying that it, data class, I don't know how exactly to explain it, but it's maybe used for organizing your data, right? So if you just have some stuff, let's say you have a human, okay, let's say you have a student, okay, and instead of like declaring 10 different lists for each student's name, ID, or the marks or whatever, you can just declare a student class, data class of the student, and you can say that each student has these many attributes, like he has his name, his age, his marks, all those things, and you can create one single list of that. So that's why it's much easier to just create a class. So here we're just creating each class and instantiating, where saying that this is the string that each affirmation has, and this is the image that each affirmation has, and then we're putting that in a list. So That list, if you see here, is passed on to our item view. And then the item view uses it saying that this is our data set, and from our data set,
Hello,
get,
Rishi.
yeah,
Can you hear
Raj.
me? I
Yep, yep.
think your screen is not changing. You should,
Okay,
I
okay,
think,
sure.
present again.
Uh, is it visible now? Pranshu, is it visible now?
Yeah, it is
Okay,
visible.
good. So what happens in your what do you say, item adapter is that your data set, you get a reference here, and we're saying that we need the affirmation at this position of the link list. And then we're saying that we set the text as the text that we provided in that list, and then the image that was provided in the same place. Okay. So that's how it works overall. Okay, I've just explained to you how it works, but the coding part of it, you will get into it much more in the course, and they will like say what each line of it does. Okay, so that will be more helpful. Okay, now I think that's about it. The affirmations app, yes, I'll just show you how it looks. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so your affirmations app will look like this. We've got our list, and each list has our list item. Okay, our list item has just this image view and your text, and then you can scroll in it as you wish. Okay, so here I think there'll be just 3, 4 views that as soon as it scrolls out here, it just comes back here and it's depopulated. Okay, so I think that's about it. We can finally move to the Q&A session, and then after that, let's see what we can do. You can, using the same Slido link, you can put your question answers in that. We will be just looking through that. Okay, cool. Do I need to learn XML? Okay, so see, you don't need to learn XML separately. Like I said, the rules are very simple. Okay, as you go along and just like as you create your layouts or just use a what do you say layout editor, it's you just get the feel for it. Okay, like you'll know the structure that if I have to make something like this, then I have to first declare the view group, and then inside that I have to put each view. Each view has its own attributes, like that you'll get it. Okay, I mean it's a lot of information to take in at once, but then once you get used to it, it's really nice. But you won't have to learn it separately. It will all be covered under your course if addressing your question. Yeah. Okay, wait. Just okay. Are there any more questions? Just this one, or okay. If there are no more questions, I think we can stop for today. Or let me just close the tabs. Stop presenting. All right. Thank you guys for attending. It was a very fun session. I had fun handling all these things. It was really nice. Okay, cool. Stop.